Hello everyone, my name is Alex Tate and I work in the UK Polar Data Centre at the British Antarctic Survey. I presented a poster at the previous Polar Data Forum in Helsinki that described the early stages of developing a data management system for the research vessel Sir David Attenborough, or SDA for short, that was then being built in Liverpool. Now I'm back for round 2, so what's changed? Well, after inevitable delays caused by COVID restrictions, the vessel finally made it out for sea acceptance trials in October 2020. Since then, the SDA has continued to test equipment and systems that are vital for working at sea. The central photo shows recent science winch trials as an example. Where possible, the science support teams have spent time on board commissioning the science equipment and labs, as well as installing the IT and data infrastructure. This work is progressing well, and in terms of IT, we have a populated server room, a reliable network, Wi-Fi and a working satellite link. None of that stuff is particularly photogenic, so instead I've shown a photo of one of the 16 screen video walls that are dotted around the ship. These can be configured to show visual output from almost any of the science systems on board. The example here shows bioacoustic data being collected. So, with IT infrastructure in place, we've been able to install various data acquisition systems to log data from underway sensors. These are termed underway as they're expected to be recording data continuously, irrespective of what the ship is doing, things like air temperature or wind speed. With a lot of work from colleagues in the engineering team, we are now logging outputs from 22 such sensors, as indicated in the screenshot bottom left. In terms of data volume, we are currently recording around 1,000 data values per second, and the next slide describes the process in a bit more detail. So, we are logging sensor messages from a bunch of navigation instruments fixed on the main mast, things like GPS antennas and wind sensors. We're also starting to log some of the meteorological instruments that measure things like temperature, humidity and precipitation. Most of these instruments have serial outputs of various flavours, and we interface these with MOXA serial to Ethernet units that are installed physically close to the sensors. The data messages are then able to travel onto the SDA network and are directed to our 2 data acquisition systems. We decided on 2 for redundancy purposes. We're running SCS software kindly supplied by NOAA in the US. We use an older version of this software on our previous vessel, the James Clark Ross, and we're very familiar with it. We're also running our VDAS software developed by colleagues at the National Oceanography Centre in the UK. This software is newly developed, but it's being used in production on the UK's other deep water vessels, the Discovery and the James Cook. Despite differences in the technologies used, at heart the 2 logging systems do very similar things. They are configured to listen for the incoming data messages, and when they receive them, they add a timestamp, sourced from our onboard time server, decode the message and store it safely to disk. The data can then be reused in a myriad number of ways. They can be visualized, accessed, quality controlled, aggregated, rebroadcast, the list goes on, but I'll just concentrate on visualization for now. We already use Grafana for visualizing non-marine data, but I was interested to see whether it could recreate the kind of lab view charts we had on our previous vessel. The answer is mostly yes, and this slideshow shows a variety of recent test visualizations, including a windrose, zero-based gauges to display things like ship roll, multiple time series on a single graph, and compass charts for variables like heading. Lastly, we have a center uptime chart which shows users whether there have been any logging issues in the recent past. The screenshot shows part of a 7-day history with each horizontal stripe representing a sensor. Dark green indicates all is well. The regular light green stripes have been traced back to nightly virtual machine snapshots that cause us to miss a few seconds of data across all of the sensors. The yellow bars at the bottom show that we are continuously dropping about 10% of data messages from 2 of the gyros, something to investigate and fix. Okay, that brings us up to the present day, with the SDA currently undergoing refit work in Denmark. The photo shows it berthed across from the JCR, our previous vessel, which now seems ridiculously small. The JCR will soon start the next chapter of its life as a Ukrainian polar research vessel. There are many things on my to-do list, but the priority is to integrate the outstanding underway sensors, including some that haven't been physically installed yet. We also need a logical structure in which to store all the science deployment data like CTD casts and data from the installed acoustic systems. Much of this work needs to be completed before the vessel heads south in late November, but definitely before it starts science trials in the summer of 2022. Fun times ahead. I'll finish with an obligatory sunset shot taken off the Welsh coast earlier this year. But if you have any questions, then fire away now or contact me at my BAS email address. Thanks for listening.